Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is actually the first one of a brand new series I'm going to start. It's something I've not actually done before on camera, but it's something I've always been interested in and something I want to try and do, and that is games development using Unity. And specifically in this case we're actually going to use Unity 5, which is really a considerable improvement to the previous iterations, and it allows us to do a lot more. The type of game I want to create, however, is something that you might not be familiar with. If we take a look at this example, this is a game called Simutrans. It's actually open source, so you can download this for free and give it a go. And it's a type of simulation genre where you are running a business for transportation. You receive a new map with different population centres, and it's your target to link them together, and you make money based on what you transport, be that either people or goods such as shop items or meat from farms to warehouses. However, as you look at it, I think before we go forward, you can actually see a few things I'd like to make some improvements on. For example, to start with, we have the graphical design. I think this is actually the design of the game. If you look, you can see you only have a few degrees of freedom. If I take the track tool here, you can only move in a forward direction, across that, or you can actually use a diagonal like that. And that's one of the issues, because I think if we consider some of the latest releases, such as City Skylines, the graphical abilities in that game is quite phenomenal, and we can show that you can actually have complete degrees of freedom like you would in a real game and still be able to run it with extremely large maps and simulate a large amount of content. So that's something I really want to build upon in this kind of genre. And also is the business aspect, because this game goes quite into detail about the technology behind the track. For example, if you look at a railway segment like this, you actually have to physically place each signal like this manually yourself. So you click like this and direct trains in the exact way you'd want. And that's something I'm going to try and avoid for what I'm going to move forward with this game, is to focus slightly less on the technical aspect and look slightly more at just building up a business and perhaps bartering for different contracts. And the final thing I want to add is a on-the-ground view, or even perhaps a driver's eye view for some of the things, because I think that would be quite interesting and people enjoy that. One other issue I found with this game, and I'm not sure if this is an issue some other people experience, is when you grow certain cities, they tend to grow upwards in these big skyscrapers much sooner than they grow outwards into many different houses, which I tend to find is just a bit unrealistic for city growth. However, I must stress that this is a great game, and if you're into this kind of genre, I do recommend you have a look at it, because again, it's open source and it's free to download and play, and it is a really enjoyable game to play. Okay, having said that, I'm going to close down this window and we're going to go back to Unity. To start with, I've actually set up a project, but for you to follow along, we're just going to create a new project using this window here. And what you should do is, first of all, give your project a name. So I named mine Transport Game, and then select somewhere where you'd like this to be saved. Ensure that the 3D icon is ticked. If it says 2D, just click on 3D. And then under Asset Packages, to start with, what I'm just going to do is tick on Environment and Effects, and then tick Done. After that, you can tick Create Project. And what it will do is import a load of stock assets to help get you started and create the project for you. However, I've already done that, so I'm just going to select the project I've already got here, and that should open up in a moment. Okay, so this is a Unity 5 scene, and it's actually a lot different to what I'm used to. I haven't used Unity 5 particularly much since release. I'll show you what I've got in these folders. I'll just delete these two scripts here because they're what I've been experimenting with earlier, and we'll start from scratch. So if we look in the standard assets folder, this is all the stuff that got imported. So you should have this cross-platform input. I believe that's so you can do different types of phones and Xbox games and things like that. We have this effects thing, which we're going to use quite a lot of for the light flares and cookies and perhaps some image effects when we get a bit more advanced. And the main point for this one is going to be environment. And what I'm going to take advantage of is these water presets and some of the terrain textures, just so we can get a good idea of what things look like before we get into the actual coding, which we're going to do later on. Okay, in Unity 5 also we start out with this nice default scene, so we get a main camera and a directional light, and also we have a nice lighting effect, which is this skybox here. And that's something I really do like, because it means you can actually jump in and focus a lot more on the content rather than worrying about it looking good initially. Okay, to get started here, I'm actually going to just go up to Game Object, 3D Object, and add a new terrain. Okay. So what this does is it gives you a big flat object that you can basically sculpt into whatever area you want for your game. While I'm doing this, I'm just going to go to Window and find the light mapping window, which is here. And down here I'm going to untick continuous baking. And what that does is it stops this little progress bar coming up in the bottom, which really slows it down and actually has a bad effect on the recording software. Okay, so I haven't actually planned too much here before I started. I thought for this tutorial series I'd actually just first of all jump right in, and just if I make mistakes while I go, then you can see basically how I solve the errors that I get, and basically the whole creative process of this game that I'm trying to create. I'm going to hit F here and focus a bit more on the terrain. I'm actually going to tick this lighting box because that's blowing it out a bit much, because the lighting is a bit too powerful at the moment on this personal white terrain. I'm just using this tool to add a bit of roughness to start with. And I'm going to switch to this tool and maybe add some more mountainous areas. This is obviously way too bumpy for the sort of natural looking terrain I'm going for. And something worth mentioning is this isn't going to be like a final game terrain. This is just like a sample thing, so we can see what's going on with certain features before we go in, and what we'll actually do later is make a terrain script. We'll be able to generate this kind of these kind of worlds automatically when you create a new game, which will be quite interesting. It's something I've worked on before, and I think I don't think it's covered too much in YouTube videos actually, and it's quite a good topic to know. Another reason why I'm actually recording this, because I wasn't originally going to record this, is just the variety of games you see being taught on YouTube. You'll be able to search for how to create a shooter game and be able to create one straight away, but to be quite honest, if you're just starting out in games, you don't really just want to make shooter games all the time. You can actually learn a lot from studying a few different genres, and this is more of an unusual genre to actually do, so I think it's quite interesting, even if you're not into this kind of game, just to see what kind of techniques go into making one. Okay, so that's a bit rough. I mean, I'm not actually going for any art awards here, but I'm quite pleased with the way this is just looking a bit more natural. The next thing I'm going to do is go into this paintbrush icon, and this is our terrain textures. So this is going to make our terrain look a bit less rubbish. So if we go to edit textures and add texture, we can add some grass to this. So if we go to this folder and find the terrain assets bit, we see we've got quite a few different textures we can add. I think to start with I'm actually going to add this mud rocky one, because this one comes with a normal map, which will make it look a bit better when you're walking around and doing certain things. Normal maps basically affect the way a certain texture is lit. So you see here it has the effect of making things look slightly bumpy, but it's an illusion. There is no extra bumps or geometry here. It's just the way the light plays on the geometry. So you see if I re-enable this lighting thing, you can actually see the effect this has. If I just take the rotate tool and shine this around, you can see the effect on the lighting here. And bear in mind, this is before we've had any fancy Unity light maps baked in. Okay, so I'm not just going to have that on my terrain, so I'm going to add some grass as well. Probably this grass hill, that looks quite nice. Go back to terrain. If you click on the grass hill, you can then paint that on top of the existing texture that's already on your terrain. And you can blend them together in quite a nice way. And again, later on when we're scripting our terrain generation, we'll have something that determines this. For example, we could have a piece of code that determines the slope and decides whether or not it's likely that grass has grown there. So for these flatter areas, there'll be quite a lot of grass, and for the hills and the mountains, there'll be less grass. Also, the chances are this terrain is actually going to be a lot smoother when we program it, because we want it to look like it's a bit more urban, and it's likely that cities would grow up here. Here's one other cool thing I just want to show off at the end of the video, which is going to be the default water. And you notice if you go into the water folder of this environment thing in standard assets, you have two choices. The first of which, as far as I can tell, is the same as the Unity 4 water. So if you go into prefabs here, you've got two options, which is Pro Daytime and Pro Nighttime. And this is the water you'd receive if you were a Unity Pro customer. Obviously in Unity 5 we actually get all of the different features straight away, so we can use these in our games without being, essentially in the personal edition, the free version of the software. So what I want to do is just create a little pool here. I'll just show you the water here. I'll just scale this up. Obviously it's not going to fit exactly correctly to start with. I'm quite rushing this. I'm just going to modify the terrain slightly so it doesn't poke out the end here, and the pool sort of, I have the pool end over here. So you see it looks like you got a little like mountain lake. If I just go off the terrain and zoom in a bit, you can see this water actually looks really good. You've got some real-time reflections here, showing off the mountains, and it also reflects the sky. So this is a great option for something like still water like we've got here. The other thing I'd like to show off is second folder in here, which is Water 4. And if we take this advanced thing and drop it in, you see immediately it's animated, and that's done by script that's placed on this water by default. I'm going to drop this into the same place, and then we can see it more detailed. You see immediately we've got this more sort of oceanic sort of movement to the water, so we've got waves going up and down. And again we've got, although it's more difficult to see because of the movements, there is reflections of the sky and the world around you. And the other thing I really like about this water is if you look towards the edges here, there's actually foam that builds up around the edges of the water, as if the water is splashing up against an object. And that's something I really like about this water. So I think for this kind of thing, this is more suited to like oceans, whereas the Water Pro from Unity, almost the Unity 4 iterations, is good for still lakes. So I'm actually just going to use the Pro one here because it makes a bit more sense. And obviously you don't have to follow along with this exactly. This isn't like by any means this is exactly how you should make a terrain video. This is just us getting started. Okay, so I'm quite pleased with this. I say it's not perfect, but it's good to get us started. And I think that's where I'm going to end this video. And next time we're going to have a look at how to create day-night cycles to make this a bit more of an immersive world while we're playing. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.